a 41-game suspension for sports betting, a 27-game ban after a domestic assault charge, and an indefinite suspension that ended a two-time Stanley Cup champion's NHL career. These are the longest and most controversial NHL suspensions of recent years. Number 1. Shane Pinto, 41 games for sports betting, 2023. Starting off with one of the more unusual cases, Shane Pinto, a young forward for the Ottawa Senators, was hit with a massive 41-game suspension in 2023 for his involvement in sports betting. While the NHL didn't find any evidence of him betting on NHL games directly, this still crossed the line in the league's eyes. It's the longest suspension for sports betting in the NHL's modern era. What makes this case stand out is that sports betting has become increasingly accessible and widespread, especially after the 2018 ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court that legalized sports gambling. With ads for betting apps and sportsbooks everywhere, players are more exposed to it than ever. Pinto's suspension is a reminder that for NHL players, betting of any kind still carries serious risks. After his suspension, Pinto issued a public apology, acknowledging his mistake and expressing regret for the impact on his team and fans. At just 22 years old, Pinto's career was only beginning to take off. Despite his disappointment, he handled the situation gracefully, and both his team and fans showed him support, hoping he would learn from it and return with a fresh perspective. The Senators were vocal in their support, describing him as a valuable young player who had made a regrettable mistake. But this suspension also raised questions about the pressures young athletes face, especially with gambling now playing such a prominent role in sports culture. For Pinto, this has been a costly lesson, and it's one that won't be easily forgotten. Number 2. Evander Kane, 21 games for COVID-19 protocol violations, 2021. Evander Kane's 21-game suspension in 2021 was one of the more high-profile disciplinary actions in recent years. Kane's offense? Violating the NHL's COVID-19 protocols. Specifically, he was suspended for allegedly submitting a fake vaccination card. Kane's situation was complicated, involving a string of controversies beyond the vaccination card. He was under investigation for accusations from his estranged wife, who claimed he bet on NHL games, including his own. Although the NHL found no evidence to support these claims, the shadow of controversy followed him, and, amid the pandemic, the fake vaccine card incident was considered a severe breach, not only because it put others at risk, but because it undermined the league's efforts to keep players and fans safe. The 21-game suspension also had significant financial repercussions, as Kane had to forfeit a large portion of his salary. This case highlighted the extent to which the NHL was willing to go to enforce pandemic protocols. While some fans were sympathetic, others felt that Kane had pushed the league's patience too far. Kane's suspension became a defining chapter in his turbulent NHL career, marking one of the highest-profile COVID-19 protocol violations in professional sports. Number 3. Milan Lucic, 10 games for aggressive misconduct, 2023. Known for his tough, physical presence on the ice, Milan Lucic crossed a line in 2023 that led to a 10-game suspension for aggressive misconduct and fighting. Lucic's style has always been intense, but this incident went a step further. While Lucic's aggressive play has been a defining part of his career, the NHL made it clear that even physical players have limits. The league's decision to suspend Lucic highlighted the importance of balance between competitive intensity and safety. For Lucic, this suspension became a moment of reflection on how far he could push his physical style without crossing into dangerous territory. Number 4. Sammy Blais, 2 games for an illegal hit to the head, 2020. In 2020, St. Louis Blues forward Sammy Blais was suspended for 2 games following an illegal hit to the head of Colorado's Devon Toews. While Toews returned to the game, his hit was considered serious enough to warrant disciplinary action. The suspension may have been brief, but it underscored the NHL's commitment to reducing head injuries. The league continues to be proactive in penalizing hard hits, even if no injury is immediately visible. Blais's case served as a reminder that every hit counts, and players need to be mindful of their actions on the ice. Number 5. Brad Marchand, 6 games for roughing and high sticking, 2022. Boston Bruins winger Brad Marchand is no stranger to controversy. In 2022, he received a 6-game suspension for roughing and high sticking Pittsburgh Penguins goaltender Tristan Jarry. Marchand's actions occurred in the final minute of a game, escalating after Jarry appeared to say something to him. The incident marked Marchand's 8th career suspension and was the longest to date. In the heat of the moment, Marchand took a swing at Jarry and then struck him in the mask with his stick. His actions resulted in a 5-minute penalty for attempting to injure and a 2-minute call for roughing. The NHL's decision to impose a 6-game ban was influenced by Marchand's status as a repeat offender. Bruins head coach Bruce Cassidy acknowledged that Marchand's lack of discipline had impacted the team, especially during a crucial time as they faced injuries to other key players. For Marchand, this suspension was a reminder of the consequences that come with repeated infractions in the NHL. Number 6. Tom Wilson. 6 games for high sticking. Another familiar name in NHL discipline is Tom Wilson of the Washington Capitals. In 2022, Wilson received a 6-game suspension after delivering a high stick to the head of Toronto Maple Leafs forward Noah Gregor. Wilson's hit came during the 3rd period of a closely contested game. The NHL's Department of Player Safety considered Wilson's history, noting that he had been fined or suspended 9 times over his career. Although the league acknowledged that Wilson didn't intend to strike Gregor in the face, his substantial track record of dangerous play led to a 6-game ban. Wilson's suspension reflects the NHL's stance on accountability, especially for players with repeated disciplinary issues. His case is a reminder that players are responsible for the outcomes of their actions, even if unintentional. Number 7. Mark Scheifele. 4 games for charging, 2021. Mark Scheifele of the Winnipeg Jets was suspended for 4 games in the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs after delivering a controversial hit on Montreal Canadiens forward Jake Evans. The hit left Evans on a stretcher and sparked widespread debate. Scheifele argued that he was trying to make a defensive play, but the NHL ruled that he had conceded the empty net goal and intentionally delivered a high, violent check. The incident incited outrage among Montreal players, with Joel Edmondson promising that if Scheifele returned, the Canadiens would make his life miserable. The case highlighted the intense nature of playoff hockey, where emotions run high and the line between defensive and dangerous play is often blurred. Number 8. Jason Spezza. 4 games for kneeing, 2021. In December 2021, veteran Jason Spezza of the Toronto Maple Leafs faced a 6-game suspension, later reduced to 4 games, for kneeing Winnipeg Jets defenseman Neil Pionk in the head. The suspension was initially lengthy for a player known for his clean record. Spezza appealed, and Commissioner Gary Bettman reduced the suspension to 4 games, citing Spezza's 19-season history of clean play. Bettman acknowledged that while Spezza's kneeing action was reckless, his overall reputation and the relatively minor injury to Pionk justified a shorter suspension. The case was rare in that the league reduced a suspension, showcasing how player history can sometimes influence disciplinary actions. Number 9. Nazem Kadri. 8 games for a hit to the head, 2021. Then Colorado Avalanche center Nazem Kadri is no stranger to disciplinary action, and his reputation only grew after an 8-game suspension in the 2021 playoffs. Kadri delivered a high hit to the head of St. Louis Blues defenseman Justin Falk, an act that left Falk sprawled on the ice in visible pain. The hit was particularly controversial because Kadri was a repeat offender, with this being his 6th career suspension. This wasn't Kadri's first suspension in the playoffs either. He had been suspended twice previously in playoff series while playing with the Toronto Maple Leafs. After this incident, the NHL's Department of Player Safety ruled that Kadri's check was excessively violent and targeted Falk's head, a decision that had Blues players like Braden Shen calling it a dirty hit. Kadri's case reinforced the league's intolerance for hits that risk serious head injuries, particularly by players with a history of infractions. Number 10. Austin Watson. 27 games for domestic assault, 2018. And last but not least, we have Austin Watson's suspension in 2018, which marked one of the NHL's strongest stances on off-ice behavior. After pleading no contest to a domestic assault charge, Watson received a 27-game suspension. Watson's case underscored the NHL's commitment to accountability beyond the ice. Although his suspension was later reduced, the incident prompted discussions about how sports leagues should address the issues of personal conduct. Watson's career has been impacted ever since, and his case remains an example of the NHL taking a firm stance on player behavior.